They split into 3 teams, 1 for each van. Motorcycle squads ran alongside each vehicle. The one led by Eva was likely the real one, with Big Boss's body inside. If the enemies got their hands on it, everything would be over. With the curfew in effect, the streets were empty save for PMC troops, and there was no reason for the Paradise Lost to watch their speed. But the European city, with its long history as a fortress town, was built with a complex network of twisting roads, much to the detriment of both past-day invading armies and the present-day commuters. The city had been untouched by Allied tank battalions during World War II, even escaping Hitler's wrath, so the streets remained perfectly preserved in all their nuances. The narrow, winding roads held back the speed of Eva and her men. But the same was true for the PMC forces, and they probably didn't have motorcycles either. Hard to imagine them gaining much ground in the armored personnel carriers. A sound cut through the air, and something flew by overhead. "A slider!" I yelled. A bird-like unmanned combat aerial vehicle, like the one we saw in the Middle East, gliding around with wings like a raven and coming at Snake head-on. "Snake!" Eva shouted. "Do something!" He took out his submachine gun and fired on full auto. But head-on, the slider had a slim profile and was exceptionally hard to hit. "Shit!" Snake said. The slider's mounted gun began to shoot. The weapon was located where the bird's head would be. Unlike the wings, that part of the machine could remain steady during flight. "Hang on!" Eva yelled. She deftly maneuvered the Triumph to one side in a movement so quick the bike didn't seem to turn at all. The drone's machine gun fire passed beside them. The rear van and bikes managed to evade the attack, but their riders hadn't managed to fire back like Snake. "I'm turning!" Eva threw her kickstand to the ground and spun the bike around in a bowel-wrenching turn. The rest of the squad managed to follow, but Snake felt sorry for anyone having to keep up. They came to a thoroughfare along with PMC patrols stationed here and there alongside the road. Those quick enough to notice the resistance motorcade fired whatever weapons they had, but the vehicles shot by too quickly. Nearly all of their shots missed their targets. A high-pitched shriek made Snake turn to see a slider fly out onto the road, right on their tail, firing indiscriminately after the resistance forces. Several PMC soldiers were struck down by the bullets. The slider gave no regard to friend or foe. "Snake!" Eva said. "In front!" Another slider was rapidly approaching. "What do we do?" Snake said. "Push through. What else? Just pray for luck."
"What about that side road up ahead? Can you make the turn?"
"That goes backwards. It can't be more than a 30-degree angle." This was essentially a U-turn. Not even Eva, and the maneuver she pulled before, could make that turn at their speed, let alone the rest of their entourage. It was as Eva had said. All they could do was try to pass under the oncoming slider. Then an APC came out from the side road. Its loudspeaker cheerfully called out,
"Snake! You need me?" "Drebin."
What got Snake's attention even more than Drebin's sudden and surprising entrance was Little Gray, standing atop the APC, an RPG-7 in hand. The vehicle slowed to let Eva's motorcycle catch up.
"You think we can make a deal here, old Snake?" "Please!"
The APC pulled right up next to the Triumph, so close they were almost touching. Little Gray stretched out his long gibbon arm and handed Snake the rocket launcher. Eva yelled, "Snake, it's coming!" Snake stood on the back of the bike, lifted the RPG-7 to his shoulder, and took aim at the slider in front.
"I'm throwing this one in for free,"
said Drebin. Snake glanced at the APC. Sitting at the gunner's seat was Little Gray, another RPG-7 at his shoulder. He was aiming at the slider in back. "I'm not sure what's going on here," said Eva, laughing. "But you guys are really fucking weird." Snake didn't have time to laugh, but he was bemused by the idea of a monkey and a snake fighting together.
"Fire!"
Snake said. The monkey and snake simultaneously fired. Just as they had launched together, so did both rocket-propelled grenades find their target. Before and behind the racing squad, orange flames burst into the night sky and cast their light upon the city.
"Well, Snake,"
Drebin said,
"gotta run."
The APC turned down a side road and parted with the convoy. I wasn't sure if he activated the octocamo or not, but I lost sight of him within seconds.
"What an odd man," Eva said. "Who is he?"
"A gun launderer. For some reason he seems to like me."
Another howl. This wasn't over yet. Then came the hailstorm of grenades. It was practically a carpet bombing. The two sliders shot down by Snake and Little Gray had been nothing more than decoys. Amid the battle, a third slider had stealthily flanked them. The van rolled over from the force of the explosions. The vehicle came careening at Eva's bike, and just as it was about to flatten them, she yanked the handlebar to the side. The Triumph tumbled sideways. Snake and Eva were flung off, smacking against the wall of a building partially destroyed by the bursting grenades. The van brushed past them and slammed into another house. Snake had been battered against the stone wall, but most of the impact was absorbed by the sneaking suit. He stood, coughing violently, and looked at Eva. Under her leather jacket, she wore only thin clothing, not enough to protect against that amount of force. Her face was chillingly pale. Beads of sweat ran from her hair and down her forehead. Her right hand reached across her stomach, clutching at her side, trying to hold her life inside while it slipped away. I couldn't see if it was a fragment of a grenade or a chip of pavement, but whatever the thing pierced inside of her was, it looked fatal. She gazed up at Snake, her eyes distant.
"My children."
He looked down the street. The motorcycle squad had been wiped out. One rider had a caved-in skull, another had bones protruding from all over his body, another was covered in shrapnel, their bodies still upon the drying pavement. Snake walked over to where the van rested on its side. The rear door hung open. Empty. Eva's hearse was a decoy. With a deeper appreciation for her strength, he walked to the driver's side door. He checked on the limp bodies of the driver and another youth in the passenger seat, but it was already too late. Snake turned to Eva and shook his head.
"I'm so sorry."
He walked back over to her and said,
"So it was a decoy. I'm impressed."
"Not just this van. All of them were decoys. The Pyx is safely floating down the river."
"Eva, are you all right?"
He inspected her side. Her gloved hand was wet with her own blood. A bird cawed in the distance. It was a sign of morning's approach. Or was it Death's scout?
"Big Mama, can you stand?"
"Snake,"
she said, her voice fevered and weak. Her eyes were vacant, unfocused.
"Is that you?"
What she saw in her half-conscious state wasn't the Snake in front of her, but another man who once had the same code name. A man who had once saved her when she was gravely injured in the forest in Soviet Russia. Coincidentally, that wound had too been in her side.
"The man I once loved. The man whose eyes I knew were only for that strong, righteous great woman, yet who still I couldn't stop myself from falling for. That's why I gave birth to them. To your children. To you. Something that not even the woman you loved could do. Yes, maybe I was jealous. What I felt towards her was beyond the concept of love versus hate. Maybe it was wrong of me, Snake, to bear your children. Snake."
"Eva, I need you."
Then Eva came back to reality. She curled her lips, blood trailing down from the corners into an unnerving smile.
"A mother's work is never done."
With one arm still to her side, she pushed herself up from the others. Drops of blood dripped from between her fingers. Snake gave her his shoulder and asked,
"What now?"
"Land and air routes are cut off, but a cruiser is waiting for us at a rendezvous point on the river bank downstream."
"Good thinking."
As she leaned against him, he let her lead the way, but after a few steps she stopped. She took a few moments to look at her overturned Triumph.
"I don't need to feel the wind anymore. I don't need to keep lying to myself."
She pulled away from Snake's shoulder and walked by her own strength.
I only get off my bike when I fall in love, or...
She walked to a manhole near the side of the road. She looked down at it, and Snake understood. Together they lifted the cover.
The underground aqueduct leads to the river. There should be fewer of them down there.
They climbed down the ladder.